Okay, so we are live. Welcome to Pierre-Yves, but welcome to everybody that's joining us live or watching us on the replay. So, Pierre-Yves, I always say this to my guests. This is my introduction. I don't introduce you because I think I would do a very bad job of it. So I ask my guests always to introduce themselves, give a little bit of context of who you are in the context of maybe this conversation, and any highlights you think is useful for people to know about you.
Great, Colin. Thank you very much for having me, and very happy to be here. So my name is Pierre-Yves Rahari. I'm the co-founder of Reseo. Reseo is a digital universal corporate ID that we've created initially for the investment industry, but aiming to be used universally by corporations. Besides Reseo, I'm also the co-founder of a consultancy firm called Algomi Consulting, which actually saw the genesis of Reseo. I'm French. I live in London. I've been in the investment industry for a really long time. Fabulous industry, and I train as a psychotherapist.
Wow, so many angles to go from for that. But first of all, I appreciate you giving me your time. So full context to everyone watching, that we actually know each other from a personal perspective. Selfishly, I wanted to have this conversation because our professional worlds have never crossed over in any way. And when we've ever met personally, I've always been interested in what you and Luke do as jobs, but we don't always get to sit down and actually have a conversation about it. And I'm aware roughly of what your company does, but it's really a nice way for me to sit down and ask you a ton of questions, just really about the company. And I'll structure it in a sec, but I'll just give a sort of where my mind's going at the moment. Is just how you actually started the company. And I think why the story is very interesting for me is that, and I said this to you before, you've been very successful in your career so far. So you worked, both you and Luke worked for companies for a long time, very successful in your careers. Then you started your consultancy business, which often is a natural progression from, when you have that experience, you want to bring more to the market, but then to jump into building your own product. And I keep saying in my head, it's a SaaS product. Is that wrong to say it's a SaaS product? So software as a service, is that right or wrong?
If it's a binary question, right or wrong, I go on wrong.
Okay.
I'll explain what we're doing. Yeah, no problem.
But I want to understand, because oftentimes when we talk about companies and people starting to, being successful, we don't often talk about what actually goes on behind it. So this transition from you being an employee to creating your own consultancy firm with Luke, and now bringing a product to the market, that's quite an evolution. And in terms of what that actually takes, in terms of, there's risks involved. There's, I would say, quite a lot of different skill sets are involved in all of that. So could you just sort of talk about that and how you found all of those transitions, maybe from every single one, or the hardest, any parts of that?
Thanks for the question, Colin. It's a deep one. It's a question around what can be observed from the outside, which is a trajectory, so to speak, and kind of how this trajectory meets or doesn't meet some of people's expectation of what really happens behind, and how those expectations and trajectory overlap or don't overlap. I want to talk about our product first, because that's kind of the end of the story, or a beginning of another one. And I'll explain how we got to conceptualize the idea of Reseo and we built it. So I'll quote one of our investors who very, very recently told us, actually, guys, you've invented what I would call a corporate Apple ID. And we said, well, I don't know if we can call it Apple ID because we don't have the money to borrow the trademark for Apple, but the concept is there, which is for corporations or institutions. We've created the concept of having in one place all the data and information that is required from this institution or corporation when they interact with another corporation. The concept simply doesn't exist at this point in time. There's a lot of similar or cousins type concept, but the idea is to have them in one place and be able to be used universally across any interaction that a corporation has with another one. So that's the concept. And we started, and we are still focused on using Reseo in the investment funds industry because there is a very, very strong use case there, which is the onboarding of institutional investors and distributors trying to open an account in an investment fund. This is a typical corporation to corporation transaction where one corporation is going to be controlled / verified where due diligence by another corporation. And what we've created is this concept of you can have all your ID data in one place and can be used across as many transactions you're operating with a fund or with several funds. So that's the product. Yeah. And we start with investment funds today, but tomorrow a corporation is going to interact with a custodian bank, and they're going to be verified by the custodian bank. Tomorrow, this corporation is going to interact with their notary, with their lawyers, etc., etc. And instead of having to repaper their transactions over and over and over again, they can do it once with Reseo and then present the Reseo as a universal passport, so to speak.
Okay, I didn't realize the long-term vision. So I've never worked in. So I've never directly worked in funds, but yeah, I've known like KYC, so know your client or know your customer, and it's such a big topic that when you're in that industry, it's so much resource goes in it, so much time, errors, delays. It's a whole world of, I don't know, one of those things that just sucks up so much and takes so much. And so you've now created a platform where that can be streamlined. But I didn't realize there was a vision for so much more beyond that, which is, did you start with that vision, or you started this and then you saw the vision as you progressed?
We started with the former, which is, and now we can talk about the genesis of Reseo, which was part of your initial question. We started with the idea. We looked at, there's a couple of things. There's the macro view and there's the micro view. The macro view for us was very clear, and they're not divorced from one another. The point was we were looking at the experience of onboarding clients in an investment fund or being a client onboarded an investment fund, and everything you describe is absolutely true. It's very long, it's paper-based, it's extremely painful. In our life, working with investment fund, it was probably one of the most sensitive and painful process that you could deal with. You had clients that we tried to, it would take 12 to 18 months to convince a client to come and invest in our fund. They bring an investment with 7-8 numbers, and we explain to them that it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to open an account, and they can't square up the equation there, and then you have to renew. It's extremely painful. So that's the micro pain that we looked at, thinking, it's been going on for too long. We really need to try and help and resolve that. The macro view for us was to say, is this pain necessary? And Luke and I, Luke is my co-founder, are absolutely convinced. It's a big impact piece of what we're doing, that the financial system is a requirement to make our our word function, and the AML KYC is one piece of making sure that that financial system is protected. There's tons of different way of protecting this system, but we think we can do a little piece here. So we started thinking, why is it so painful? What has been attempted to do it? Can we look at the issue from different angles, and literally what made Reseo is that we started looking at the issue from the perspective of the investors, the distributors going into the funds. So, and if I were an investor and a distributor, what would be my ideal experience? Mm-hmm. And we started conceptualizing Reseo from there. So that's the idea.
And does the name of the company have any relevance? Because names sometimes are tied into it. I created my own company, Vantage Point Consulting, because I was just trying to come up with things, and there's no relation other than that I maybe saw things from a different perspective. And sometimes you think, oh, okay, it's a great idea, and then the next day you wake up and go, that's a terrible idea. But is there any link between the product and the name?
Yeah, there is, and I'll explain it, but I have to pay tribute to our team here. It's been a collective effort to come up with the name. We went through, and we'll talk about the resources you leverage to set up a company and be a startup, and capital is one of them. And there was just a point in time where we knew we absolutely needed to. It was a combination of needing to make sure that the concept was clear. So it's a question of positioning of the solution, and then there was the idea of, if we want to sell this product, we need to have the positioning very clear, but the brand needs to be aligned with the positioning. So what happens in this case, you brainstorm. We were very lucky. We worked with a branding agency. The whole team got together and worked on that. And we came up with the name Reseo, which means overcoming.
Ah.
Yeah. Nice. So really, and it sounds really, really, really good.
Yeah, that's cool. You touched on a point here, because I have a background. I worked in projects for a long time. So I worked for some big banks, and most of the time the job that I did was bringing in a solution into our company, so an external provider, and trying to help fit that new product in. And obviously the provider would have their own resource, tech experts, etc. But when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking, you touched on this as well about funding. So you need to have a product that's not necessarily finalized, that's enough to be flexible, but gets the whole idea across, yet doesn't look so basic that people go, look, this is created in a in a playground. And I was thinking, how difficult is that to actually do? Because you want to show up and you need to, I would imagine, pitch and explain how these things work. And yes, you can do that in a presentation, but really people want to see like a hands-on. Where do you draw that balance? Because there's an investment and you don't really want to go too far. That's how I've experienced. Is that how it was for you?
Yes and no. There's a process before you get to the point of being able to present what you describe. We call it minimum lovable product in our in our firm, and the process is as follows. I go back to this idea of trying to conceptualize this idea of Reseo, and you start dreaming and thinking, gosh, you look at other solutions that exist, you investigate, you start thinking, you brainstorm, you have this aha moment thinking, oh, if we do it this way, it could work. But the reality is, to the point you made, is the reality is you need to sell it, and you need to be able to, first of all, test whether it makes sense from a market perspective, from a user's perspective. So what Luke and I did is we conceptualized the idea. We haven't gone through how we got from corporate to consulting, but we had been consultants for a while by now, and so we took our idea in a conceptual way, slides and presentation, and we decided we needed to really tour the market, do a 360 socialization of our concept with all the actors of the market that could be impacted. So, we're talking about asset managers, we're talking about distributors, we're talking about transfer agents, which are the distributors, which are the administrators of fund. We talked to compliance officers, we talked to regulators in the UK, in Luxembourg, in Ireland. We talked to a lot of people to socialize the idea and get feedback on, is this making sense? Is this feasible? Is this reasonable? Do we have any chance of building a business based on that? We did a first tour, which allowed us to refine the concept. And then we did a second tour to confirm that we were in the right path. And while we were doing that, we started thinking about the size of the market and the opportunities of the market. And in our experience, anyway, and that's how we've done it, we have been thinking in terms of, is there really a market for this, and do we have any chances of going through this market? And numbers are there, analyses are there, etc. But at some point, we listen to our gut, thinking it's worth giving it a try. And when I say numbers, it's the numbers in terms of how much resources do you need to put in place, and how much capital this is going to require, and how do we do this, etc., etc., etc. But at some stage, our gut feeling told us, yes, there is something to be done here, and we're doing there. It's been a long story, and it's not an easy. It's been really, really, really challenging to get where we are today. And we do have our first commercial successes, which is fabulous. But it's not, we wake up one day, we create something, put it in place, and then voila, it's a whole process. Now, to your question, how do you strike the balance between concept and minimum lovable product and developing more, etc., etc. I have to say that it's been for us an excellent experience of moving from theoretical concept of listening to the customer to making it happen, really. So yeah, we needed to develop something that we could actually present. Concept is good. What really people like is when they see the product in action and in motion, and we show them, we press a button, and then we create the EID, and the document come up, and then they say, oh my God, it's really happening. And then they choose a fund, and then we say, well, this is a mock TA, and this is their AML KYC matrix. And then, you press a button, you say, this is all the documents that are going, they love seeing that. And then when we are talking to our clients, we get more ideas. They help us refine what we do. And then there's the idea of, what do we develop to make the product continuously relevant? Mm-hmm. And there's the concept too of, some of the features that we developed could be client specific, and then we develop that with them.
I love that whole part that you've done this 2 tours. I think that's such a smart thing, and like you kind of alluded to, people think that you just wake up, you had this idea, and yeah, bam, it's all working great. But these tours, that must have taken quite a long time. You don't just invite everybody and it's done in a week. It must have been a series of meetings in different locations, etc. How long did both or either of those tours take you?
From recollection, I would think about a year of between conceptualizing, thinking there is something going on, and then starting to reach out to, about a year.
Okay.
And about a year means it's not the only thing we did within a year, because you run things in parallel. You run many things in parallel. I think that's one of the what I'm discovering in setting up companies. You can do different things in parallel. You just need to be very clear what you're doing. Thinking about it, it's no different than what happens in corporate. You have an assigned role in corporate, but you can do different things within your role. What we did is we conceptualized the idea, but already we were starting to think about how we would structure the company, how we would source the company in terms of people, in terms of capital. Everything runs in parallel. We have one of the things that Luke and I were very, very clear on from the beginning is that we wanted to structure the company with a proper governance and a board of directors, etc., simply because we believe in this concept of the structure does the heavy lifting. So having a structure gives us room, in fact, to think about the strategy, and allows us to have milestones and think about where we want to go, and then execute. So probably a year from conceptualization to saying this is the right idea. But we started thinking about how we would make it happen. Yeah.
So and there's a couple of questions. I want to come back to the structure part and having that vision ongoing. But in terms of that tour, how useful was it for you? Because to get into some of these institutions is not easy to even have a meeting. But obviously, like I've mentioned, both you and Luke were very successful in your careers. You had obviously connections and friends, etc. How much of that was actually useful, or how many new doors did you needed to go knocking on in order to have those meetings?
Yeah. Fundamentally useful in terms of getting the feedback and helping us, and fundamentally useful in sensing the dynamics of the market. And it was an exercise of moving from desk research to reality check. So, and I would recommend to anyone who wants to launch a product to go through that process, because you end up sensing who is using what system, what's the dynamic of the other systems in place, or the competitors, where are the point of anxiety or resistance in the market, and you end up. We ended up this idea that I mentioned about the positioning of Reseo emerged from these tours, where we realized that there was a very strong concept of digitalization of AML KYC process in the market, and there's a lot of extremely good solutions on the market. And we started to realizing that we were not a digitalization process, but we were a procurement of data, working with the digital solutions. So I'm being a bit technical, but the point I'm trying to make is we would not have touched on those nuances that allowed us to position the create and the product as it is right now, had we not done this process. Then there's another thing that really works well when for us, actually, it did work extremely well. Our tour serves a little bit as an echo chamber. To your point, yes, we do. We are able to speak within companies, and within companies, people speak, and then it serves a little bit as a echo chamber. And there's other work we're doing to support what we're doing. We have a colleague who helps us on the marketing side, and she leverages all these connections we're making to build on the work she's doing. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think it's really moving from desk work to reality check, and that's invaluable. absolutely
Yeah.
invaluable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I know quite a lot of people who started their own business, not in the same way, but maybe coaching, etc. And the way that they actually finalize their messaging is by being in contact with people, using the language that their clients actually use, so that they could really understand. And they say that it's such a valuable part of their exercise, going out and speaking to people, understanding them, because
Mm.
yes, you can have a brilliant idea in your mind, but it's in your mind and what you think is good, but
Mm.
you need to be able to market that or put it in the language of your clients so that you can understand them the best and say, right, okay, this type of client is not my client, or this one is, and this is the language they use, this is, and understand their pain, etc., and make sure that you can show them their world with your product, if that makes sense.
It
And
does make sense. I would add one thing. Again, doing these tours and helped us start thinking in terms of the value that Reseo adds to our clients. And that's the only conversations we can have with our clients. Is we can talk about the pain, we can talk about the difficult process, we can talk about what we're going to improve, but the connection and the sale happens when we're able to identify and articulate to our clients the value we bring to them. And again, the touching the client, or being with the client, allows you to really articulate the value, which end up pushing the product. I had something else in mind. I was thinking, and I'm maybe jumping back to the point we made on structure and strategy and product and vision and executing, and then what happens when we hit the reality of clients and capital and product and reality. It's a fabulous exercise, again, of having reality checks. We're very clear on the vision of our product with Luke and the team, which is, while we are helping to digitalize the procurement of data, we're starting to think about the next value proposition of the product, which is increasingly increasingly enhance the validation of the data that we provide. So making them more and more and more and more secure and validated before we provide them to counterparties. Right now, that work of validation is done by the counterparties where we're sending the data, and it uses an incredible amount of resources that we think can be replaced, or that validation could be done within Reseo as opposed to outside Reseo. So we would provide extremely secure and validated data. But that's a vision, a longer term vision. And there are some implications in terms of the technology we are going to implement within Reseo to enhance the validation of those data, et cetera, et cetera. So there is this vision, but the reality is we need to go one step at a time, which is, get adoption on the market, work on the onboarding of our clients, fine-tune the product as it is right now, but keeping an eye to the horizon, thinking the product needs to go in this direction because we know more or less at macro level, this is the direction that the market is going to take. So there's this loop that is constantly going, which doesn't allow you to be complacent. Not easy, but fun.
So that comes in my mind about back to this structure and being sort of accountable. So I know in my own world, there's a lot of shiny objects that come and you go, oh yeah, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. Yeah. And they don't necessarily appear as shiny objects. They just appear that, yes, that's the thing that I should be doing. But it often detracts you from doing the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And So what I found in my own business is that I was focusing on so many things, and I thought I needed this, this, and this. But actually, when I minimized everything and I just committed to doing these 2 LinkedIn lives a week, I put out daily content. That was it. I realized that I could go a lot faster, and the other stuff, because that's kind of the mission, like, statement to myself. And then I wonder, okay, is any of the other stuff adding value to where I want to go? Is it just noise? And sometimes that's very difficult when you're in it and you have all these opinions, or you're surrounded by people that are trying to help you, saying, oh, this, and it's one of those things that I call my North Star, and it's that thing that keeps me aligned. And I'm not always following the North Star. So you have this structure and this team behind you, and I think that's so important to come back and ask you the same questions over and over again. And it might sound repetitive and boring, but it keeps you on track and not be distracted. That's how I see it. Is that how it functions in your company?
I'll go my typical answer, yes and no.
I'm asking the wrong questions.
No. You're opening up the question. Your question poses the question of, to me anyway, poses the question of what is the role of, what is my role, what is Luc's role as entrepreneurs and running a company, and how we wind about structuring Reseo. It poses the question of, what resources do we have to make it happen, whether it's our team, whether it's capital. And it poses the question of, what does accountability means? So 2 very, very important points. I think capital is an extremely important point. We are invested in the company as co-founders, and we are extremely lucky and extremely grateful. We managed to do a first round of capital raise, and we're in the process of doing our second round of capital raise, and we've been successful so far. So we have investors committed to the success of Reseo. The same way, we're very lucky we have team members who have decided to join the company and find it stimulating enough and help us make it happen. And the same way, we do have directors who are helping to guide the strategy of the company. So I think the point, your question really asked the question of what is our role, and how do we make all of this happen. I think there is another element that I don't want to underplay, which is, supporting everything we're doing. There are the prospects and the client we're talking to, and there is the industry. There are the regulators who have been supporting us and are supporting the efforts we're making, and so on and so forth. So we're not operating outside the system. I think that's what I'm trying to articulate. We're operating within a system that has some rules and requirements. If we set up a company, we need to be very clear and transparent on what is the objectives. We are producing figures, and we are accountable for the figures. If we have investors, we have to be that they're investing on the basis of a plan that we are producing, and we're accountable to report on how we're doing against this plan, and so on and so forth. So it's some people talk about the science of management. It can be an art. It's just a matter of structuring and prioritizing and making things happen. At personal level, it's really making sure I am very clear on what my responsibilities are. We've learned to work with others tremendously. We wouldn't be here without all the stakeholders that I mentioned, and it's a continuous exercise, and that's what I'm discovering. Which it's nonstop. Your role changes all the time, but there's some expectations that you help make it progress. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's that's the answer to. That's how I experienced the idea of BNR.
When you were speaking, I started to think how your every day must be very different for you, because sometimes you need to work in the business, some days you need to work on the business, and it's that kind of mix between both, because you need to build your product and talk to your clients, engage with them. And the way that you describe it, I really like it. It's like a partnership with your clients, and I love that, because it's something that you're building, but you're building it in partnership, and maybe not from a financial perspective, but just working with people to solve their pain and to understand their world and to see how that fits. And for me, that partnerships build such a deeper relationship longer term, because it's not, oh, here's my product, go and use it. It's okay, this is a product, how can we best get this to fit, and tell us where we need to go. And that's sometimes missed in companies, because we think that the product that we have is just brilliant, and go and use it. But you, like you said, step by step, you're engaging with your clients and partnershiping and just building those relationships. And for me, that's what business is about: relationships, foundational, and that you can build on those. Because we live, I'm very influenced by social media a lot of the time, and we have all these people that have been successful, and that's again why I want to have these conversations, because the reality is there are very rare cases of overnight success, but the reality is success is built over a longer period of time, and when that happens by the time and effort you put into those relationships and the commitments that you have together. So I think it's often misunderstood. So it's great to have this conversation with you, that you're sharing that and how it works for you. So, yeah.
The point you made about the North Star, you used the word North Star, is really important. I think the point about clients buy value in our books, they buy value. So it's constantly thinking, I am still valuable for my client. Is my proposition of value? And looking at things from that angle really shift the dynamics all the time. One of the reasons I think Reseo is finding it resonates with the market is that we have designed the product from the perspective of the user, the investor, the institutional investor, and the distributor, and looking at what we're trying to resolve from that angle, all of a sudden unlocked a lot of value on the table, and I think that's why it resonates. But once again, we have the duty of not being complacent, because we have constantly to ask, are we still delivering value? Is the value that we're proposing still making sense for our clients? And our clients are not static. They themselves move in their own system and their own universe, and part of what we need to do is to constantly be aware of what is going on, because they're not static. And if we miss that corner where they shifted and our value proposition has not shifted, then we'll become irrelevant.
Yeah. So I'm a bit conscious. My Wi-Fi is dipping out a bit, but I think I've got the conversation. So, but because how often do you actually ask that question? Are we still adding value? Is that a thing that you put in the calendar and say every month, are we still relevant? Are we still adding value? Because again, it's so, we can get so caught into the details sometimes that we go too low and we go, okay, hang on. And again, it's great that you've got that support system and structure behind, because people can maybe just pull you out when you're, and I'm not just talking about you, it's just in the whole dynamic of it. So
I laugh because I'm thinking, are we doing it? So again, I probably have the macro and micro type of answer. At micro level or at day to day, our life, to your point, is reaching out to people, talking about we're doing demos. We're piloting with clients at the moment, and listening to feedback, and getting sometimes some really 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 constructive feedback, sometimes some really challenging feedback, and then we regroup as a team and we go, what have we heard? And so these are instances we are constantly challenged on the question: are we delivering value, or what is really going on? And while we can't shift things very immediately like this, so it's always happened. No, so that's the micro thing. So I think we're constantly, there are occasions where we come out of a meeting and we're thinking there was no alignment here to stay polite. And it's really really tough. It does happen. Now at macro level, and that's part of the organization Luke and I put in place. We do there's again the question of making it happen, this review of the value and accountability. So the accountability ultimately for us goes through our quarterly meeting with our board, where there is a constant reporting on what happens, but looking at where we're going and thinking. So these are structures that forces us to constantly, in fact, be alert. And then what we have to is one of our colleagues helps us on product development, so ensures that we do channel somewhere all the feedback we have categorized and see whether it's something we can develop, not develop. So we do have product development process that is regular and ongoing, and that parallels two things. One is the choice Luke and I have made is that we do get our team involved in the strategic discussions around the company. It's very important to us. We don't want to have a top-bottom approach to things. It's a bottom-up approach. So the strategy is something we review on an annual basis, which form the proposition to the board, and then we review every 6 months, more or less. Yeah. And it helps us really think at macro and micro level again on, are we still delivering value for the market, and how do we make it happen? And then I talked about product, I talked about strategy. So it's really the strategies that drive in the product. And we're doing the same process with the marketing colleague I mentioned to you, where we're thinking, is the way we're articulating the proposition to the market still making sense, and will it resonate with the market, or are we too far apart from what the market is willing or is can hear?
Yeah.
Voilà. So it's a combination of things, but that's how we run that's how we bring everything together.
I think what I love about that is that you've got these safeguards and this structure, and was that all in place as you started, or you've built it over time and things got away from you and then you realized, okay, I need to put these meetings, this strategy in place? Or did you have it all from? And when I started thinking about that question, I was thinking, this must have maybe come from your days as an employee and also from your consultancy world, because you must have seen how these things work. So
yeah, you're absolutely true. That's where it comes from. And it helped us in the past. It does help us now. I just want to put a caveat. I don't want to sound like we're obsessed about structure. I think I'm just articulating the fact that as we're running the company, we're very mindful of making sure it's run properly. But our day-to-day is the other piece we described, which is it's constantly going, thinking, changing this. Oh my God, we need to do this, and but it does help. There is a term, I think it helps contain everyone in the organization to have this way of operating. It does help contain the level of excitement and anxiety that there is about working for a startup. It's anxiety provoking. It's exciting, but it's anxiety provoking.
It keeps you up at night sometimes. So I want to just talk about technology, because you know, AI just seems to dominate every conversation that we have, and you're using technology. And so again, this is how my brain works. I was thinking, why now in terms of your product? Because this problem has existed for a long time. And you can't be the only one to have thought of it. If you are, that's amazing. But I would imagine there are other people. And I know you said that there are other solutions in the market, which are actually, you're not touching those. It's something different that you're providing. How much has the availability of technology allowed you to do what you're doing? And how do you think about AI? Because AI, everyone gets very excited about it. I know certainly there's huge benefits, but when I think about banks and institutions, oftentimes there is this wall that you can't really pass because of sensitivity of data, and you're not sharing that with the outside world. So you have to be very, very careful of that. So I guess there's multiple questions in that question. Why now? What makes it the right time? And are you worried about technology in the future because it's moving so fast that you have to either keep up or adapt, or is that just not even a thing for the product that you've created?
Yeah. Big question. Big question. The why now, I think I've covered it. I think I'd ask the question, why is it possible now? The why now it's a point in time where Luke and I were thinking, there have been so many attempts to do this. Is there a different way of doing it and making it happen? Now, yes, I think it's a combination of two things. For me, it's the availability of technology, and yes, Reseo is AI based. And I would say it's the availability of capital to some extent to fund what we're doing. What we're doing is on the operation side of the investment funds industry. At least that's how we consider it at the beginning. As we are progressing and getting adoption, it's getting clearer for us that, in fact, the value we propose is very much on the client side of the funds. And that nuance is extremely important, but because in our industry, like any other industry, the prioritizations of where capital goes and where technology is funded is commensurate or is in line with what the priority of the industry is. So it's no state secret that there is a lot of money put in technology and AI in the trade floor of the investment funds industry. That's just how we work. Then there was a massive shift during COVID. We do remember, conversations with account managers or salespeople in the industry saying, gosh, we can't do the dining, we can't do the lunching, we can't do the conferences, and it lasted about a year and a half. So we had to start very intelligently and powerfully using technology to do the marketing of our product. So the capital for those technology is starting to move into those areas. And I think what happens with Reseo and other technologies we're seeing is the emphasis on getting efficient processes, technology-based process is moving down to the operations because efficiency cannot be longer justified. Cost needs to be controlled, and it just, I think we are at a sweet spot where the technology and the capital are coming together to allow the development of solutions like Reseo. That's my very, very strong belief, and that's something Luke and I, and definitely the investors that are coming into Reseo believe in. So it's the right time now. We have built, we have used Reseo on AI to build Reseo, because at the risk of oversimplifying our solution, it's really, AI has allowed us to manage massive complexity and a illimited number of use cases that would have been unimaginable to do using human resources in a limited time span. What I'm trying to say is we can go and find data through reputable sources and use AI to connect the data and create a corporate ID. And it's just, it would not have been possible yesterday. It just would not have been possible. It takes the 6 weeks that it's taking right now. And then it opens the options. I think using AI has opened the options of creating more solutions that our client value. That is definitely true. The other thing that happens is we have to make a bet when we're building a solution like Reseo. We had to make a bet saying, are we creating a solution that is, because at the end of the day, there is a connection with the counterparties and we need to be connected to the system of the existing counterparties. And we are making a bet, and it's a reasoned bet to say, well, the technology where we're connected right now will evolve over time. So we need to start thinking about what technology could potentially be used by the counterparties of Reseo in the future. And we have designed Reseo in such a way that it's flexible enough to be able to be used across several technologies. And that's the universal nature of Reseo. There is no secret, again, it's not a state secret that blockchain and tokenization is where this whole industry is going to. And we've designed Reseo in that way. And the third point I'll make about technology is I talked about the vision of verifying data, which can be done through technology. So they're very, very new technology. And that's the type of technology we're considering. So in summary, yes, I think we were able to create Reseo because the technology is at a point where it is possible to do what we have dreamed of. And I can think of other areas in the funds industry where I need to make note of that, the next product, but where the technology and the capital are aligned to make this happen. At the end of the day, the experience for the client remains the experience of the client. What we bring in is an increase in the value of the experience of our client because the technology allows it.
In my experience, in terms of working in some of these institutions, and I worked in operations as well, there was always this need to make things more efficient and work better. But this whole procurement process was always very painful. There was many hoops. So say I worked in operations team and I worked in reconciliations. We wanted a new tool. Yeah, we've looked at it. We think it's a good fit. But that stage from actually saying, yes, we want your product, to actually being able to start implementing it in any way, that is quite a lengthy process in terms of due diligence, background checks, security and everything like that. And you mentioned this, the fact that you've got funding, but that period can be a long time. We're not talking days. Sometimes that's even years to go through, because your product is not the only product that these companies are looking at. They're looking at multiple ones at different stages for different parts of their business. But to have that funding and keep your product, knowing that it's a brilliant product and it's brilliant and it's going to fit where it is, but there is this time delay between that and getting that. How painful is that from your perspective?
I would add to the lead time that you mentioned, the sales lead time, the sale lead time. So you add the sales lead time to the procurement lead time. It's anxiety provoking. Of course, it's painful. It's our work is about building the product. Sourcing, building and selling the product and building the product and funding the enterprise. It's a virtuous circle. Here's the thing: it doesn't stop. So again, that's from our own experience. I don't know how other experience it, but my experience is that it just doesn't stop. So I've learned, and we've learned, I think, to accept that is the nature of the beast. And it's a little bit, I'm going back to the starting point, which is what it is to be an entrepreneur and what happens. I think that's one of the myths that we're doing the experience of, which is it's a myth that there's a very linear trajectory to making things happen. And I think it's true in corporate too. I don't believe in a linear trajectory. And I was very, very impressed by how you presented my professional trajectory. And it does look like this, but in the background, it's constantly working things again. So, very anxiety provoking, but you have to learn to accept that that's how it works. Otherwise, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and so I think it's great that you've obviously got Luke and Luke's got you, in terms of we're all human, right? And this is, again, behind the curtain. It all looks very nice, but there are days when you're like, Jesus, this is you've had a lot of rejections. Like you said, you come out of a meeting and you're not aligned with them, and it can feel very disheartening in many ways. Like what keeps you going? What makes you get up like the next day and go, okay, like that was just a bad day? Do you have a routine? I know you're very much into health, and you think about your mindset a lot, and the way that you eat, and you introduced me to surfing, which is 100% like the one thing that I will always take away from our friendship, is that you introduced me to doing something else. But how do you get through those moments of doubt and etc.?
I had a conversation with my sister recently, and we talked about spirituality, and I'm not going to go into that territory, but I think what's really, really important, and that goes back to this idea of entrepreneurship. It's the idea of vision. I think we do have a vision of what we want to create and where we want to go. And it's that vision really that carries that we put back again to our board of directors. It's that vision that brings the investors and the clients, and that allows us to have a team work with us. And I think that cannot be underestimated. So do we work at making sure that we have a vision? We do. Yes, we do. And that's the, strategic thinking and making sure. But then that's the macro view. And again, the micro, it's day-to-day learning to prioritize things, protecting oneself. So to your point, I do a lot of sports. I train as a psychotherapist. So, I do have space where I can stop and reflect and take care of myself. Really, really important. Discipline does matter. There is this brand of t-shirts I really like. It's called Rondorf, and their tagline is "Discipline is not a dirty word," and I love wearing that t-shirt. Space and structure. Again, it's my personal experience. Discipline allows me to have space and structure. A space, in fact, really space, and creativity comes into that space.
Yeah, I am. So I was let go of my job about 18 months ago, and I worked with, I don't really know her title. She's a life coach, career coach, and we spent a lot of time putting foundations in about my exercise. I do things like breath work. Meditation is part of that breath work, healthy eating. And there's aspects that I didn't really think about I work from my apartment. You need to get out, you need to go and experience things, go for a walk, nature, a whole load of things. But we worked on that a lot because that's basically the foundation of everything else. You know, it underpins everything, because in those moments where things don't seem okay, then you've got those to fall back on. And I found that definitely in my own world very, very helpful. And that I also used to be very disciplined and structured. I always I found myself very boring because my life was very structured. You know, I exercised at the same time, I ate pretty much the same thing. But then over the last, I don't know, 4 years, I've started to realize that I require this creativity part in my life. So if you take a month, I like the idea of being routine for 3, and then almost having this 1 week off, where my mind opens up and I am not a slave to that structure. And I didn't realize that was actually part of me. But both work in such a good way, because the creativity feeds the need for the routine, and the routine in itself feeds enough structure that I can be creative. And I didn't realize that existed. I just thought I was 100% routine. And I think the more we understand ourselves and the more we're aware of what goes on when we're in business and when we're facing these things, you know, it really helps us move on and not, you know, sort of sink when we go through these hard times.
Correct. Yeah. Fabulous.
Good. Well, I think that's a great place to end. I am so grateful for you giving me your time. I love the conversation. I've learned so much more about your product, and it's again, probably quite selfish for my own benefits, but you know, there's no doubt in my mind. I've always known that you and Luke will be successful, but you as people are very successful, but that doesn't always mean that the market's ready for your product. But it sounds that you've found the right time, you've got the right structure in place, you know, you're thinking about so many elements, so you have everything for it to work. And I'm super pleased that you've got this, but also I understand that you're so busy, so to give me your time was amazing. It's amazing. Where, if people want to find out more about you or Reseo, where should they go? Is it a website? Is it LinkedIn? What's the best place to find you?
www.reseo.global.
Okay.
And then on LinkedIn, Reseo Global, or through my LinkedIn, everything is there.
Perfect. So I repost these lives, and I'll just copy all of those into the notes, so it'd be easier for people to find you, and just in case they don't. But yeah, as for today, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I know we're talking about getting Luke on, so it'd be good to get his perspective on things as well. So yeah, for today, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Colin.
Okay. All right. Take care, Pierre.
Bye-bye.
Bye.